Hi everyone, this is Rob Kaufman from Parent Health Hub, and we're very happy to have you joining us today for our webinar about helping children cope with separation and divorce. Now, before we get started, I just want to mention about 5 housekeeping tips to make the webinar go a little bit smoother. You'll notice on the left side of the control panel, popped up on your computer, there's an orange arrow in the top left. If you right-click that arrow, you'll have the option to unclick the Auto Hide control panel. You'll probably want to do that so that the control panel stays open for you during the entire webinar. You'll also see a box in the control panel that says Enter a question for the staff. That is where you can type your questions for our presenters. And you can ask questions at any time. You don't need to wait until the end. And we're going to let the therapist present their material first, and then we'll give them your questions to answer. Just know that your name will never be mentioned or displayed anywhere. The therapists and other attendees cannot see the attendee list, so everything is anonymous. And lastly, at the end of the webinar, we'll give you our contact information so that if you have any more questions or need help with anything, you'll know how to reach the right person. So, I'd like to introduce you to our presenters from Transformations Counseling Group in Smithtown, New York, Lori Thompson Miranda and Amy D'Antonio. If Lori and Amy would like to turn on your webcam and start your presentation, we're ready for you.
Hi everyone. Hello. Okay, so I guess we're going to just get started. Thank you everybody for coming in to join us for the webinar. We're going to just give you a few tips about talking to your kids about divorce and some of the pitfalls and ways that you can help make sure that your kids are adjusting as well as possible. So I know that we have a poll question about the your current marital status, so I think we're going to put that up. So if you get a chance, please record your answer.
And we don't see this, do we? No, I don't think we see the answers. Rob's going to take care of that.
Yeah, and I think Rob is going to take care of collecting the poll information.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, the first question?
The current marital status, just so we know who we're talking to.
Right, there it is. There we go.
What is your current marital status?
Right. What step of the process are you currently in at this point? So while you guys are recording your answers, I think we're going to just start talking a little bit.
Good idea.
And the first thing we want to talk about, okay, so most of you we can see are either married or separated.
Okay.
All right. So this next part is going to be very important. So some tips about how to handle talking to your kids about divorce, because that's a really challenging thing for parents to discuss with their kids. It's a huge life-altering decision for everybody in the family, and for kids in particular, it's incredibly confusing and scary. So the number one most important thing that you need to make sure of is that you have absolutely made the decision that you are going to divorce. So you shouldn't tell your kids that you're divorcing unless you're absolutely sure that you are. If you do that, it will create a lot of confusion and fear. If you tell them that you're divorcing and then you're back and forth with getting back together, and then one minute you're fighting and then the next you're kissing and hugging, the kids are going to feel completely confused. They're going to feel like things are constantly on the edge of falling apart. And that's going to create a much more hostile environment and can create quite a bit of anger in the kids and resentment. You know, it's like, why would you tell me this terrible piece of news if you weren't sure? I know Lori and myself have both had many cases where kids come in completely confused because they say, well, my parents said that they were getting divorced, but daddy and mommy still sleep in the bed together and they still say they love each other. That's too confusing. So you need to make sure that you have made that decision and that what you're communicating is the absolute truth. If you're not sure, wait until you are. That's very, very important. So I know Lori has a little bit more information about now how you go about telling the kids that you're planning on divorcing.
Right. So once you have made that decision that you are going to get divorced, and when you sit down with them, you want to tell your kids at the same time, even if they are different ages, explain it in terms each child understands. Secrets between any family members breeds resentment. And it can also be confusing. If you tell the older child, okay, but your sister's too young, tell them both in terms they both understand. Kids are more resilient than we think.
I think another piece, just to add to that, is that if you tell one child, say you have 3 children, and you decide to tell the oldest one, but you don't tell the younger 2, that creates a ton of pressure on that one child, where they're going to feel like they're holding on to this big secret and they're all alone. And siblings, one of the things that's great about siblings, if you have more than one child, is that they can really rely on each other to talk about what's going on, because they're experiencing the same kind of trauma. And having an ally is really a wonderful thing for them. And if you only have one child, then it's the parent's job to be their ally and to always be there to talk to the child. That goes the same if there are siblings, but especially if it's a single child household. So the other thing is you need to expect that it's going to be an ongoing conversation. There have been a lot of times where I've talked to parents and they say, well, we're going to have this big sit-down family discussion and that's it. No, it's going to be an ongoing discussion where questions are going to trickle in over time, and you need to at all times make sure that the most important thing you address is how your child is feeling. If you avoid talking about the feelings part, you miss the mark. So you need to expect that there will be multiple times where the kids are going to talk to you, and often divorces and separations can be very long, tedious, stressful processes, and each step of the way, kids are going to have questions, and they're going to want to know that you have the answers that can assure them that they're going to be safe. So, go ahead.
Okay, where are we? Oh, okay. Under no circumstance are we ever to blame the other parent. That is probably the worst thing that you can do to a kid. You have to remember, okay, so daddy hurt me, and I'm mad at him, and he might have done something terrible, but that's still their father, and they still love him and respect him, and if they start to hear bad stuff, it's going to cause confusion. And let's see, what else? Okay. Do not share information that is for adults only. So, for example, finances or your father cheated on me. Kids do not need to know that, especially in the beginning when they're just trying to wrap their heads around everything. And you want to make sure over and over and over again they know that it is not their fault. Most kids will jump to that right away. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe if I didn't do this, mommy and daddy wouldn't be divorced. Or maybe if I was better in school. Or maybe if I did this. Make sure that this has nothing to do with them.
Another piece is when you do decide to tell your kids, it's best if you can tell them together as a team, but if you can't do that amicably, you really need to make a plan as to what each of the parents is going to say, and it needs to be matching information. Mm-hmm. So if one parent comes in and says, well, daddy was cheating on me, and it made me very, very sad, and so we have to leave, and then the other parent comes in and says, you know, mommy wasn't making me happy because she was spending too much money. That's going to be completely confusing for the kids. So matching information is really, really important. And ideally, if you can sit down together and talk to the kids, that's preferable. But again, if you can't do that because it's too tense, emotions are too hot, make sure I almost suggest having a script that you guys agree upon.
Yeah.
And you rehearse it ahead of time. Okay, this is what we're going to say. This is the agreed upon language we're going to use, and how we're going to answer these questions in a way that is age appropriate and doesn't make the kids question our love for them. So, and defining for them the difference between parental love versus romantic love is also kind of important. So you can tell them that, for example, romantic love can sometimes dissolve, but parental love is completely different, and that never changes. It's unending. Because I think sometimes kids will come in and worry, well, if mommy is leaving daddy because she doesn't love him anymore, is she going to decide that she doesn't love me anymore, and is she going to just leave me? So these are some of the unspoken things that, as therapists, we will hear, but they're not going to say it to you because they're too afraid. But these are the things that they're thinking. So again, when Lori was talking about not sharing information about finances, I think that's really important, because kids will also blame themselves and say, well, if they had never had children, then they wouldn't have had to spend money on me, and they would probably still be happy and in love. So picking and choosing.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how often the kids will blame themselves.
Blaming the other parent also. One quick thing I want to say about that. What you need to remember is that your children are 50% you and 50% your spouse. And if you spend a lot of time bashing the other parent, the kid is going to question, well, since I'm half dad or I'm half mom and they're so bad, does that mean I'm bad too? And again, these are unspoken things that are going to be hard for you to get from your kid, but when they come to us, this is the stuff they're saying. So we have another poll question up there about this particular topic, with the understanding that obviously when you're going through a separation,
and be honest, everyone, I'm married and I have a son, and believe me, there's times I've slipped and I've said something about his dad.
Right. And we understand that in the moment it can be incredibly stressful and difficult. And horrendous things happen in marriages at times that you would never expect. Intense betrayal, pain beyond belief.
All right, so 50-50. All right.
Even.
So half of you are doing good and half of you are not. I'm just kidding.
I think it's really
just something, I think maybe in the heat of it, you're not, it's just about being more mindful.
Right. So if you know that perhaps you have said things that maybe you shouldn't have said, what you can do is backtrack with your kids, and you can say to them, you know, I want you to know that when I said what I said about dad or mom, I was saying it because of my own feelings, and I don't want you to think that your dad or mom doesn't love you and isn't a great father or mother, or, you know, something to kind of backtrack and make sure they understand this was a you thing and it wasn't about trying to mess with their relationship, because then you wind up in a situation where one parent feels alienated, and that's not fair to the kids.
Right.
Okay. So then just one other thing I wanted to talk about this. Do you want to parenting out of guilt once that split does happen?
Well, this is a tricky one. You can start that.
Okay. Another thing that I notice in practice quite a bit is parents, when a divorce is happening, and there's a whole bunch of turmoil in the family, they get really lax with discipline. And they parent from a place of guilt.
They want to be the good parent.
Right. They want their kids to, if they don't feel like there's at least two parents in the house, well, then we're going to make sure they have every Xbox, iPad, computer, iPhone 7 that's out there. And if the kid acts up, they don't follow through with normal disciplinary actions. That is a mistake. The thing that kids need is structure and guidance, and they need to be able to feel safe at all times. And you create a feeling of safety if there is structure and guidance. If the rules go out the window, the kids feel kind of like they're flailing around and they don't know what to do. So, well, I can get away with whatever I want, so I will. And that's when you start to see more of the negative behaviors coming out. So you need to make sure that you don't skirt around the difficult things, punishments. So firm and consistent discipline is loving. Don't think that just by letting your kids get away with whatever and giving them things, that is the more loving option. It is more loving to produce a civilized, well-functioning, successful child than it is to let them kind of just figure it out on their own and get away with things. So, and again, we know that it's very, very hard, and also when you're emotionally stressed, it's more difficult to discipline. But you need to always keep in mind that your primary responsibility is to your children, no matter how difficult it is.
And just to add something to that, and then I want to go quick to, when you should seek help, because we want to open up for you guys to ask questions.
Right.
To add on to that, there's a lot of things that we see with kids. It's called the child being parentified. So if, let's say mommy cheated on daddy and daddy is really upset and he's turning to the kid for support, that can be extremely damaging. Then also tie that in with the lack of rules. The kid starts to feel like they have to be the parent and they have to take care of mommy or daddy, and that could be extremely damaging. So be mindful of that also. So now we're going to go to during this time, when to recognize that your child might need more help and might need to go seek someone professional like us. Okay. So we have a poll question. Have you seen a change in your child's mood, behavior, academic functioning since the divorce began? A lot of you are not divorced. So I guess in general, if you have seen any kind of change in behavior, kids pick up on things. So if you and your spouse have been fighting more, maybe the kids are changing. But here are some things you want to pay attention to. So an increase in aggression.
Any major behavioral or mood changes, or if they start doing things,
100%,
100% safe,
Okay.
This is and this is why we see so many of these kids in our practice, because it's a tremendous amount of stress for a little person to handle and understand. So if you see major aggression changes, like Lori was saying, that's a key that there's stuff going on.
That's in generally in younger children. I know a lot of this is elementary parents.
Yeah,
so
I think this
in the younger children, you will see aggression.
Any major mood or behavioral changes. For example, if they're spending a lot of time alone in their rooms, or if you notice that they're crying a lot of the time, or they're throwing temper tantrums more frequently. If you see a significant increase in defiance and conflict,
and that's a significant increase, because I have a 3-year-old and he's defiant every second of the day. If you see more and more aggression with that defiance.
Right. Sometimes what I see is I often get siblings that come in, and the siblings are both really angry, and the way that they take it out is on each other. So I get a lot of kids who come in and they're beating each other up, and the parents are totally confused because these were kids who got along pretty decently, and now all of a sudden they're giving each other black eyes. Go ahead.
So I know nobody wants to think this, but it starts as young as elementary school, the self-injurious behaviors. That's cutting or burning themselves, or
scratching,
picking the skin. If you notice they're picking their hair out, these are all ways that kids are trying to express themselves and They just don't have the words to do it. So keep an eye on that. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to do room searches either.
I know I have had the experience of a child who was 5 years old who started with this kind of behavior. And the thing is she didn't even know that what she was doing was, self-injury. Mm-hmm. She just knew that she got mad, and so she would find paper clips and things and start digging at her skin. And that was her automatic response. If you see that going on, that's a real indication that there's stuff that needs to be talked about. I call them stuck feelings. So you need to unstick the feelings that are causing the kid to feel so angry that their body is telling them that they need to take it out on themselves. So also, another thing, if your child asks for help, believe them. If they say, I need help, I don't feel like myself, I feel sad all the time, I feel scared, I feel worried, I can't focus in school, then that's them saying, I need help. I need help.
And don't be afraid of you as the parent being judged. That's not what our job is. We're not going to judge. Mm-hmm. Everybody really just was looking out for the best interest of the child.
Absolutely. Another thing is significant deterioration in school. If you see a decline in grades, and one of the most common things I hear is, well, his teachers keep saying that it seems like he's in another place, he's daydreaming. Mm-hmm. He doesn't seem to be really present in class, or he's just not doing his assignments. Everybody's getting out their books and pencils, and he's refusing to do it. He's being defiant. He's being angry. Probably similar things that you might be seeing at home. Those are signs that there's stuff that needs to be addressed.
All right, so it's 20 after. I think we've carved out like 45 minutes for this, so we're going to take the rest of this to open up for questions to anybody.
Well, right now I'm not seeing any questions for anyone. We did have one poll left that I wanted to.
We do have you sought out support from yourself?
Yeah. Right, and this is going to be really important because all of those feelings that might lead you to slipping and saying something negative about your spouse or your relationship are things that deserve to be said, just not to your kids.
Right.
So you deserve a safe place where you can talk about. Okay, great.
Good.
That's wonderful.
All right, so you don't need us. All right, we're done. Just kidding. Are there any questions?
Well, anybody can ask any questions now, or if they want to do something in private, they can write to info@parenthealthhub.com, and we will send the questions to you. But right now, you're live, so it's best if they ask the questions now.
Okay.
But I'm not seeing any at this moment. So if there's anything you wanted to finish up with or close out with, you let us know.
Well, I'm trying to see. Do we have any other poll questions, or did we answer them all?
No, the other ones were we told your child about impending separation or divorce.
We don't need to cover that.
Yeah, no, we asked all our questions.
Yeah, I think those were all the poll questions. I see there's another therapist sitting to your right, Amy. Who is that?
Oh, this is Wilson.
So this is Wilson. Say hi. Wilson is my dog that I bring to work with me. He really helps with the kids. Well, maybe I guess since there's no questions too, when you're talking to young kids, they don't want to talk. So distractions help. So maybe you sit them down with a coloring book and have them color, or if you have a pet that they love. Animals make kids feel a little more at ease, I've noticed, even a big giant dog like Wilson. Right? So distractions and just as less stress as possible.
Yeah, I think what's really important to remember is that your kids, despite the divorce need or separation or conflict at home, need to, as much as possible, come home to a very kind of soft environment so that they can recover from their time at school, so that they can feel safe to talk. So you want to try and create an environment for them that feels as comfortable as you possibly can. And you know, if they come home to an environment that feels really tense, it's going to make it harder for them to open up and ask you the questions that they really want to ask you, because they're going to be concerned that it's going to cause further conflict. So I think that's pretty important to remember.
We do have a question. Do you have any thoughts on shared parenting schedules? Any key tips when figuring those out? Wondering if we should plan some one-on-one time for each of our 2 daughters with each of us.
I'm not really sure. I mean,
Like as far as custody, or
one-on-one time, like if you have more than one kid, should each kid get their own time with the parent? Not really.
This person can, yes, this person is saying yes, that's correct.
Okay. So
for parents and a number of children.
Okay.
All right. I'm saying I think when you have the initial discussion, the kids need to be together. But I do think that talking to each child individually is important. Mm-hmm. Again, especially if you have daughters that are different ages, they may need things explained differently, and they may have different questions that are unique to each of them. So absolutely, I think spending time with them separately as well as together is a good idea, because they also might not feel comfortable asking some of the questions they have in front of their sibling.
The questioner says that right now they live with me and they are with their dad on Monday and Thursday evenings and every other weekend. I guess it's figuring out that whole time block.
Right. As far as custody goes, I think what's most important is consistency. So parents sometimes feel bad. It's like, okay, well, they want to see dad tonight. Maybe we can, change it. But if you're going to make those changes, do it together, parents only. Kids are not involved in that. They don't get control of the custody. When a kid gets control of where they go, when they go, it's too confusing. They can't handle that kind of responsibility. So you tell them when they're going where. If they want to talk to daddy if they're with mommy, fine. You can call daddy, that's fine. But you're with mommy today. I know it's unfair, but that's really the most stable way to approach it.
I also think that kind of going along with what we were saying as far as the importance of structure and consistency, the least amount of changes that you can make to their daily routine, right, the better. Because it's very hard for kids to have to separate their time between their parents, and not only that, but going to 2 different houses where they don't have all of their stuff in both locations, so they're uncomfortable, and maybe one day one parent lives further from school, so they have to get up earlier. So if you can keep their schedule as consistent as possible, that's good. And it sounds like that's a pretty good setup, though.
Yeah, if it's consistent every week, that's great.
Right.
I mean, not everyone's schedules can. I have couples where they're both NYPD and the schedules are crazy and they change constantly. So it's if your schedule calls for consistency, fine. If not, then you just have to be as clear and concise with it
as you possibly can.
With kids, too, we have to remember kids just want to be kids. They just want to get back to being a normal kid. Mm-hmm. So that's really important to give them as much normalcy as possible, too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one questioner who is asking, we have already settled our divorce, but there is still a great deal of conflict between us. Any suggestions on how to reduce the conflict when the other parent is always angry and is always nasty in front of the kids?
Okay. Are you still in the same house? That's what I want to know, because I know that happens all the time, is that parents may split, but they're not in the same house. I think that would be have you talked to your ex about the fact that you think that this is impacting the children negatively?
She's tried.
Okay, so unfortunately we see this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, at least let them have one stable parent. So if the one parent is, going off and just being inappropriate with the child, you let the child know, I'm so sorry that happened. Tell me how you feel about this. What can we do? Do you want to talk to me, or do you want to go maybe see somebody and talk to somebody else? Because they might not want to share with you what mommy or daddy is saying because they don't want to hurt your feelings, but it's still being put on them. Unfortunately, we can't control what other people do. I wish it wasn't so, but I see it a lot where there's one parent that is just angry and they can't control their emotions. Ideally, they should get into therapy.
Right.
Ideally, the two of you should be able to co-parent and put those feelings aside, but it's not always easy. So like I said, at least have one be stable, one be that emotional rock that the kid can turn to. And if not, then don't be afraid to bring them to somebody to talk to.
Right. There has been a lot of research that indicates that at least having one authoritative parent, which is loving and consistent but also firm,
Mm-hmm.
with good structure, can be sufficient. But you need to maintain your steadiness no matter what, and don't allow yourself to get down to that level, as painful as it is. And if it becomes really, really difficult for you to cope with how this is impacting you personally, because I'm sure it is, it would certainly impact me,
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you reach out for support, whether it's with friends, with family.
There's a lot of online support now, too.
Yeah. But make sure you, as Lori was saying, you stay consistent. You stay steady and unbending in your refusal to communicate in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say to the kids, I'm very sorry that this is the way that he or she acts in front of you. It's not your fault. This has to do with mommy and daddy's relationship. Your ex loves them, and this is not their fault. But she's right, to a certain extent, you can't control what the other person does. And making sure that you tell them that you feel like this is negatively impacting the kids, though, hopefully will nudge them in the right direction.
You want to keep communication open, because if, God forbid, the parent is doing something that's bordering abusive, you want the kid to feel comfortable enough to talk to you about it.
Right.
The same person
has
been in therapy for over 2 years, but the therapist doesn't get feedback.
Oh, that sucks.
So wait, the spouse has been in therapy, or you yourself have been in therapy?
The person asking the question.
Well, right now it says the kids have been in therapy for over 2 years.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Well, good for you for taking action.
Yes.
If you're not happy with the therapist, then change them.
It says actually all of us have been in therapy.
Oh,
Okay.
with the same therapist or with different therapists?
Waiting for that answer. Different therapists.
Okay, good.
Okay.
That's good.
I always say, and I even say this to my own clients, if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. If you're not feeling comfortable, 2 years is a long time to not have any feedback. I'm not really sure what that means, but if in 2 years you're not getting anywhere, then maybe it's time to look elsewhere. Believe me, we don't take it personal. It's okay. We're not married or even dating, so it's not like we're breaking up. If you want to go see somebody else, that's by all means go. You deserve the help that you need.
Have you seen any improvement in either your kids or the way that, any of the family members are functioning?
Lots of improvement.
Lots of improvement.
Oh, okay. So then, this is a tough process. You got to be patient and give time.
Okay. Yeah, and sometimes therapists don't give information unless they feel like it's an absolute emergency. Like I know that when I am working with kids, even if they're 8 or 9 years old, part of why they like coming to me is because I tell them I'm a professional secret keeper. And if your secrets are dangerous or scary, or I'm worried that someone's going to get hurt, then I can't keep your secret. But otherwise, we're legally not allowed to share personal information that the child reports to us, because if we do that, then the kid is going to shut down and not tell us anything. So it's a little bit tricky, and I know it can be very frustrating for parents. If you call your therapist and say, I just want to know how things are going, they should be able to give you kind of a general, temperature read of what they think. I know that I do that. I'll say, well, I think that we're making good progress, but
I can talk about what we're discussing, but I cannot tell you what specifics. The child is saying.
Right. We can't say specifics, just general.
It's really important for us as therapists to keep that confidentiality with the child.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. We are heading toward the...
Those were good questions.
They were. Excellent.
So I guess that's it for now. If there's nothing else, we can close up the webinar. You tell me.
I think we're good. As long as everybody else has everything that they need and has gotten all of their questions answered, you can feel free to contact us.
Okay. We'd like to thank again Lori and Amy for taking the time out of their day with this, and we'd like to thank Transformations Counseling Group in Smithtown for lending them to us. So have a great day, and webinar very soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.